Welcome to Southern Sense Talk on Rumble. You are going to love Annie the Radio Chickadee Ubelis and her co-host, C.S. Bennett. You'll find them live here on Fridays from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Date Time. Check out their website at Southern Sense, as in commonsense.net. It's that easy, southernsense.net. So sit back and relax. They're informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey.
Well, welcome to another adventure here, live on Southern Sense. I'm your hostess with the least mostest, Annie, the radio chickadee, or actually the chickadee now today. You're finding us live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Rumble, and Substack. And thank you for joining us as well. We're going to have a guest co-host today, Hannah Davis of fairus.org. She's joined us in the past. Curtis could not be with us, so she has kindly assented to join us in just a short while. We got ourselves a great show lined up for today. We have to start off with former Ambassador Stanley Escudero. He is the first ambassador to serve in 3 former Soviet satellites in Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Azerbaijan. He's going to be joining us in the first half of the show. And the second half, should not say former, but retired Marine Corps Colonel William Dunn. He's also the president of the Strategic Resilience Group, and he's coming out with a new book in the near future called Gunfighters Rule. So we got ourselves an exciting day to go ahead today, and a lot to talk about. One of the things I want to talk about is this popped up in the news last night. There's been an ongoing spat between Melania Trump and Hunter Biden. His latest allegation claims that Melania Trump was introduced to Donald Trump by Jeffrey Epstein, which is the biggest lie ever told. And he was offered on a chance on another podcast to take that back on air, and he just doubled down. And so consequently, Melania Trump is going to be hitting him with a $1 billion civil lawsuit. This is going to be fun to watch, folks. A lot of fun to watch. But those that listen to us know that we start off each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And today's dedication is going out to Police Officer Cameron Girvin and Police Officer Chris Reese of the Virginia Beach Police Department in Virginia. Their end of watch was Saturday, February 22nd of this year. And this is from the Officer Down Memorial page. It reads, Police Officer Cameron Girvin and Police Officer Christopher Reese were shot while conducting a traffic stop at Sylvan Court at approximately 11:30 p.m. Friday evening. While on patrol, Officer Girvin and Officer Reese observed a car with an expired plate and executed a traffic stop. During the traffic stop, the officers asked the subject to exit the vehicle, and the subject refused. When finally exiting the vehicle, the subject tussled with the officers and immediately produced a pistol, shooting both Officer Girvin and Officer Reese. While the officers were incapacitated and on the ground, the subject shot each officer a second time and then fled the scene. The subject was found in a shed near the initial scene with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. First responders attempted life-saving procedures, and both officers were transported to local hospitals. Officer Girvin succumbed to his wounds at 4:30 a.m. Saturday morning at Virginia Beach General Hospital. Officer Reese had succumbed to his wounds just after midnight at Princess Anne Hospital. Officer Girvin had served with the Virginia Beach Police Department for 5 years. His partner for slightly more. And this is their dedication.
We come on the air at 6 p.m. with breaking developments in Virginia Beach. A suspect is dead after killing 2 police officers, Cameron Girvin and Christopher Reese. It was during a traffic stop late last night. It happened near the intersection of Lynn Haven Parkway and Wendfield Drive. Alex Littlehales has the latest on what we're learning from investigators right now. Alex.
It started out as a traffic stop over an expired license plate tag. Virginia Beach police officers Cameron Girvin and Christopher Reese pulling over a Hyundai Sonata on their midnight shift. But minutes later, that driver allegedly pulled the trigger twice on those 2 officers before allegedly pulling the trigger on himself.
We asked them to go out in this community and keep us safe from evil. And last night, evil found them.
In an emotional news conference Saturday afternoon, Virginia Beach Police Chief Paul Newdigate revealed new details about how someone shot and killed 2 Virginia Beach Police Department officers in the line of duty Friday night. 25-year-old Cameron Girvin and 30-year-old Christopher Reese pulled over John McCoy III over an expired plate. When the suspect finally exited the car, a quote tussle began.
Pulled a pistol from his pocket and immediately shot both VBPD officers. Those officers fell to the ground. While on the ground, defenseless, he shot them each a second time.
I need that stretcher up to my location ASAP. I got 1 officer down. I need a load and go now, please.
Responding officers later found the suspect with what's believed to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound nearby.
Lends us to believe that this is a self-inflicted gunshot wound. At no time did any of our officers fire shots.
Chief Newdigate says the suspect's behavior can't be explained. A prior felony arrest from the mid-2000s could have played a part, but Chief Newdigate can't say for certain. As the watch of officers Girvin and Reese have ended, a community is now left torn as it remembers the death of 2 men serving their city.
We still have jobs to do, and we may appear stoic on the outside, but I can tell you our hearts are broken on the inside.
In Virginia Beach, Alex Littlehales for 13 News Now.
The chief also noted that the department hasn't seen a line of duty shooting death since 2008, saying many of the department's young ranks may be experiencing a loss like this for the first time.
It's been a somber day in Virginia Beach. Many in the community paying their respects and saying their final goodbyes to both of these officers. 10 on your side's Ashley Knight has more from the Celebration of Life service.
A moving ceremony attended by several representatives from so many different police departments and sheriff's offices, leaving these 2 families in no doubt of how much these 2 men are loved and how much support they now have. In his opening comments, Virginia Beach Police Chief Paul Newdigate said the heart of the police department was the officers on the street like Christopher and Cameron.
Those who know Chris, they know he was squared away from day one. Out of 24 recruits in his class, he was #1 academically, level-headed with a teamwork attitude. He came to work and did his job and epitomized what a police officer is.
Reese was described as quiet and not needing to be the center of attention. A friend of Reese's said the fact that Chris wanted to ride with Cameron Girvin spoke volumes about who Cameron was.
Cam, passionate, hardworking, proactive. His tenacity, work ethic, and dedication impressed everyone around him.
Chief praising Girvin for his ability in taking illegal guns off the streets. Chief said he had quite a sense of humor and an uncanny ability to rally troops in times of need. Said a friend had joked that the paperwork was the only thing he was bad at. Girvin was married to Jessica and was about to become a father to baby girl Paisley this year.
If there was a silver lining in any of this, it is that Paisley will know exactly who her guardian angel is.
A point made today was that behind every badge is a human being, and we got to know these 2 human beings a bit better today. Girvin's widow spoke of his unfailing optimism and good spirit.
He loved so big. He loved life, he loved Jesus, he loved his job, but most of all, he loved the people in his world.
A friend of Reese's said Chris was reliable and the first man he trusted to be alone with his daughter.
Really became family when I was stationed overseas just months after my daughter was born. If there was anything I ever needed, I knew I could call on him.
Two men described as the bravest and most selfless of men.
Rest easy, officers. We will take the watch from here. Thank you.
The chief telling his officers to let their lives inspire them as they come to work every day, and the families urging everyone to live the lives that they were not able to live. In Virginia Beach, Ashley Knight, 10 on your side.
Let it be said, when we finished this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be known as people of honor, humble and bold, faithful through fire. Let us hold firm to our convictions with wide open hearts, eager to listen. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us make room. Let us reimagine, welcoming voices with true compassion. Let's craft a world with hopes and dreams, challenges known and those still unseen. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be sure, when our time has come, we gave them hope, we made them strong. Let it be said, when we finished this race, we kept them free, yeah, we led with grace. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul next generation.
All right, and we are back, and you're watching us live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Rumble, Substack, and half a dozen other places I don't know where yet. Of course, I'm your hostess with the least mostest, Annie, along with my co-host and guest today, Hannah Davis of the Federation for American Immigration Reform, FairUS.org. Hannah, welcome aboard. I mean, we've got so much to talk about today that, I mean, it is hitting the fan big time. But I want to bring this up just so we can have a little bit of a laugh. It's not really funny, true, but it is, I think, how much the Democrats have actually lost touch with reality. Zoran Mandami, the communist, is running for mayor in New York City. Well, now former President Barack Obama has called him on the phone to give him some campaign tips. His former aide, Jeffrey Lerner, has also been in communications with the Mandami campaign. David Axelrod has met with Mandami. I mean, they're pulling all stops out. You also have Elizabeth Warren and AOC strongly endorsing him and campaigning for him. This has gone crazy.
Yeah, I mean, all of those people you listed off, I mean, they're great campaigners. I mean, they've had good campaigns on their own, but we know the policies that they want in place. I mean, and so when every single person you listed off, I mean, they're all open borders advocates. So it's not looking good if he wins, that's for sure. And it looks like he's got a lot of money and political fuel behind him, that's for sure.
And it's scary. I would hate to see what the city of New York would become with this man in charge. I mean, police officers not responding, sending social workers into a gunfight. That's not going to work out too well.
Yeah, no, doesn't sound like it.
And, you know, and as it is that we start off today's dedication with 2 officers that were shot only because they pulled a car over. And the guy didn't want to get out of the car. He gets out of the car, he gets into a fight, and he shoots him. They're on the ground shot, and he goes and backs and shoots them in the head. This is what you're going to have happening in the streets of New York.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably already happening in the streets of New York as well. It's only going to exacerbate the issue if we've got leftist open border policies, radical politicians controlling the political movement up there. So hopefully, you know, he doesn't get any traction, but I do think that he's becoming increasingly popular.
Yeah. And somewhere in the Democratic Party, someone's going to have to get the cojones to say, no, enough. They're bleeding members. They're bleeding constituents. And hey, we welcome them to our camp.
Yeah, they need more Fettermans, you know, people who are not just, you know, the left, they swing the pendulum all the time and they push the goalpost a lot. And, you know, just some kind of centrist Democrat, you know, someone with a, I hate to say it, but a normal mindset, you know, like a Fetterman or what's his name from Kentucky, you know, they're not too far left leaning, and it's okay to have a difference of opinion. But when it comes down to it hurting your political base or hurting the constituents that you support, I mean, something's got to change. So yeah, they keep moving the goalposts, but it'd be nice just to have some people that were, you know, right there moderate. You know, they can be left leaning or right leaning, but don't go too far either way, you know.
Yeah, it's starting to make Cuomo look a little more appetizing.
Yeah,
after his failed governorship, you know, and that's really sad. And you've got 3 on the Republican side. And someone's going to have to step away. Someone is going to have to step away so that everyone can put their power behind whoever's going up against Mandami. It's got to be one-on-one. Otherwise, I see the city failing.
Yeah. I mean, and the city's already been failing, you know, from the past administration under Biden. I mean, with the migrant crisis that they had and still are dealing with the aftermath. It's not like they're all gone. The billions in taxpayer subsidies, you know, I feel like people up there, it was interesting, actually. Let me backtrack for a second. You know, the Trump, he did fairly well in areas in New York that Republicans have never really done well before. So it's interesting to see, like you said, some other leftists are looking more appetizing, because when you go so far left or so far right, you lose your base typically, and things start to, hit the fan. And I do think that some eyes have been opened up there in New York, but I don't think it'll ever be enough to sway them to voting, Republican across the board. But just looking at the last presidential election and how it went down in New York was interesting enough to see that eyes have definitely been opened.
Well, now you got Betsy McCauley, who was lieutenant governor under Pataki, looking to possibly run for governor. You got Trump taking over Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
The question would be, would he have constitutional power to do that in New York City should Mondavi come into power and institute those crimes that's going to allow rampant lawlessness?
I'm not sure if he would have, I'm no legal scholar. I have seen some debates pop up and some articles about whether or not he'd be able to do that to other cities. And right now it's unprecedented. And I'm leaning towards the thought that he can't. DC is a completely different environment, and he legally can to an extent. But no, doing something like that in another city, I don't. Do you know whether or not the president could issue like some kind of martial law is not the word I'm looking for. I think there's a cap to what he can do in a city outside of DC, and so it would be better if he didn't push it. He already gets enough negative press, but that's just my opinion.
I know there's instances where he sent the National Guard in. The National Guard can do things to control the flow of traffic. They cannot make arrests. They cannot respond to crimes. So they are highly limited. And that would be during times of emergencies where we would not be able to do our job because there's just so much going on. And we need someone to control the flow of traffic and do things like that. And it freed up our hands to do our job. But the problem here is Mondavi's going to handcuff the cops. They're not going to be able to do their job. And if you expect someone to answer a 911 call with a shooting going down or a purse snatching or a car hijacking, they're not going to be there.
Yeah, I could see that being a basis for him possibly going into the city. I mean, here's hoping that, he's not even elected in New York, so we don't have to deal with this. And there's no emergency standing that would allow the president to do such a thing. Because if there is, and he does, it sounds like a big legal hoopla.
Yeah, it's going to be one heck of a mess.
Yeah.
Absolutely one heck of a mess going on. But, between Betsy McCauley, if she wins the governorship, and Donald Trump working hand in hand, who knows what may happen and help turn the city around, maybe even calling a special election or diving into Mondavi's citizenship to see whether or not it can be revoked.
Yeah. I mean, Trump's really good at calling in special things. I mean, he's already calling in for a mid-decade census, so trying to exclude illegal aliens from that. So if he gets the notion that he has any political power to do it, he will. I mean, that's just the type of guy he is. So.
Well, what is coming up on the immigration front that you are facing off on right now?
Gosh, federally, like I just mentioned, the mid-decade census, Trump had tried back with the 2020 census that was shut down by Biden and by SCOTUS, actually, trying to change some of the questions that were on there. But now what he's trying to do is basically do a mid-decade census, which hasn't been done before. People are arguing whether or not he's even allowed to do it. I think legally he is. I think it's just kind of unprecedented. And basically he wants to exclude all people who were illegally domiciled in the U.S. from the census. And, most people know that he wants to do it because it changes the proportioning, but actually, when you do a census, it has nothing to really do with proportioning, and more so has a lot more to do with federal funding, what states get, certain taxpayer federal subsidized benefits. And so, but, when we count illegal aliens in the census, I mean, it does hurt other states. Essentially, citizens in states with fewer illegal aliens, like I said, can lose federal funding. Citizens in some states lose representation to other states that have more illegal aliens. And then, of course, we've got like 18.6 million illegal aliens in the nation right now.
That we can estimate, honestly. That's not the true number.
It's probably over 20. But I think according to the 2020 census, the average congressional district had, I mean, I forget the numbers offhand. I mean, it was insane. Basically, the equivalent, the amount of illegal aliens that are in the U.S. now is the equivalent to 24 congressional districts. And so not counting them would obviously help states that don't have as many. Sorry, that was convoluted. Numbers aren't my thing, but the census really, I mean, it determines how we spend like $3 trillion in federal funding. And so states that have more illegal aliens that are counted are going to get more funding. And so I can see why he wants to do this. Like I said, it's unprecedented, hasn't been done before. I don't know how successful he'll be in it. I do know that like Governor DeSantis in Florida, he's already gung ho to start redistricting. And then, you've got Newsom out there in California that's like, well, if you're going to do it and Texas is going to do it, then I'm going to do it. And it's all going to be for naught. So it seems almost like, I don't know. I don't know if it's definitely gained traction and attention, but I don't know if it'll provide the results that the administration's wanting, especially when the states get down to it as well.
Yeah, it was interesting when some of these people were up in the news waving the maps of the congressional districts and how it was so obvious, the gerrymandering, and it favored heavily the Democrats. I mean, you had one district that was split up in 3 separate pieces. They weren't even adjoining. And they tried that here in South Carolina in our first congressional district, which used to be Beer Can Joe Cunningham. Remember him?
No.
Yeah, that was my congressman, Beer Can Joe. And then it's now Nancy Mace. It used to be Joe Wilson, but it's Nancy Mace now. And so they tried to do that to us, and they tried to split it along, and we fought it, saying, hey, listen, these are like-minded people. We're a coastal area, and if you're throwing part of us into the upcountry, they have no idea the economy and the tourism and the other industries attached to the coastal industry that they don't even know how to handle. So you need like-minded economically, not just politically, but economically, so we can have our interests protected and be prosperous. We fought it and we won. And it even went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court upheld our map. So it'd be interesting to see how our first congressional district here in South Carolina was able to succeed and how it's going to come up with Gavin Newsom once his map gets challenged.
Yeah, because he would have to present it. And it's not like he can just do it and finalize it on his own. It has to be approved, essentially. And I forget what organization approves it, but yeah, there's a process to it. And then there's always been issues with the census in general. I mean, the last time they did it, they had to come out and say, oops, we undercounted the illegal alien population by millions, which was a big hoopla. And then in 2022, they reviewed it, the last census, and they realized that they were overcounting like so many left-leaning Democrat states, and then they were undercounting almost equally so all the Republican states. Yeah, so it's it's like
Well, what I love is that originally when we first took the census back before you were born, there was a question as to whether or not you were a legal resident and if you were a U.S. citizen. And all the Constitution states is that you must be a resident. Now, an illegal alien is not a resident. They're
Depends
here
on who's
illegally,
defining
therefore, which side of the aisle.
Yeah.
But by law, the law recognizes that if you are a legal resident, that means you've applied to reside here legally, then you can be counted.
Yeah,
but
some
if
states
you're not here,
some states have changed, in their state constitutions, the definition of resident to include that they're legal citizens of the U.S. More states haven't than not, but and a lot of states, I think that'll start upticking, actually, becoming more popular with the DOJ going after these states for allowing in-state tuition to illegal aliens, but not to legal American citizens of a different, like it'd be like you having a kid wanting to go to UNC, but because he's from South Carolina, he's got to pay out-of-state tuition, but an illegal alien in North Carolina can get in-state tuition. It's very unfair. So the DOJ has been going after people, the states, for that. And I do think that more states will start defining residency off of lawful legal citizenship status because of the whole tuition crackdown, because we define who is going to get a certain rate of tuition based off their residency status. So
It's very interesting because here in South Carolina now, when you go to get your ID or your driver's license, whichever, it has to state if you are a U.S. citizen.
Mhm.
And it does require that to be stated on there. So it should be interesting to see how that ticks along with everyone else. With that said, let's welcome back onto the show. I don't think you've ever met him before. This is a man who is very extraordinary, Stanley Escudero, the former U.S. ambassador. And I'm probably going to get the name of the countries all wrong. And meanwhile, I'm going to get the little stuff off his face. There we go. Now we can see his handsome face.
Great so.
But the only one that has been the ambassador to 3 former Soviet satellites, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Azerbaijan.
Close enough.
Did I do that? Close enough.
Wow.
And yeah, he's a friend of CS and mine, fellow with CS Florida resident, legal resident. Yeah.
I'd love to see his resume. It sounds insane.
It
I think
is
CS has it
insane.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, I have it here. And I'll be happy to send it to you. Hannah Davis is with fairus.org, which is the Federation for American Immigration Reform, and she's sitting in for CS today. But what struck me interesting is that you wrote a very extensive article in reference to a certain treaty that Trump has been able to pull a rabbit out of the hat with. And it dealt with 2 countries that over centuries have been at each other's throat. But under the Soviet Tsar, I believe Tsar Nicholas I, he was able to give the Catholic, the Christian country, recognition. And it caused a little upset with the Muslim country. And therefore, a lot of animosity has gone on over the years. And for 3 decades now, more than, they've been fighting really hard. And no one's been able to bring them to the table. But when I watched on TV as the 2 men were laughing and joking and smiling at each other and finishing each other's sentences, I said, oh my God, this man pulled one heck of a rabbit out of the hat here. What the heck is going on?
What the heck is going on? Well, what you've just seen is Donald Trump at his best. The man is a superb negotiator. He has the capacity to understand the core of differences and disputes and to make use of, let's say, difficulties or weaknesses which the disputant countries are experiencing, while at the same time making full use of American strengths and the possibilities for assistance to bring about a solution which no one else really would have even considered. That's certainly what he has done in this case. And I have to say, having been intimately involved in it for several years, that it is an extraordinary accomplishment.
Well, in your article, and I'm going to quote directly from you, the first paragraph basically is, you wrote, Donald Trump has not just ended a 35-year war between why can I not pronounce that name? Azerbaijan and Armenia. He brokered a solution to a centuries-old conflict, which, while at the same time breaking Russian influence in what has been its own backyard and thwarting the westward expansion of Chinese influence. The history of the South Caucasus struggle is long, complex, and bloody. Now, what I was thinking of the Russian stranglehold and about the oil that is in the Caucasus, and I said, well, that's great. But then you brought into play the Belt and Road Initiative of the Chinese, which people are not paying very much attention to at all.
Well, that's true. They're not, although the Trump administration is, because the Belt and Road Initiative is something which has taken place in various forms all over the world, as China has used loans and other tactics to gain control of a great number of the world's major ports, and considerable supplies, mining supplies of various rare earths and other valuable minerals, not to mention extensive agricultural lands in a great number of countries, including the United States. And all of these things are designed ultimately to aid China in its pursuit eventually of global dominance, which they hope to achieve at the end of what they called the 100-year marathon, which would begin with 1949, which was the year when Mao Zedong drove out Chiang Kai-shek and seized control of mainland China. So that would mean that by the year 2049, they hope to be the world's predominant power. I suspect now that Mr. Trump is president, that will not happen. But they are still very strong. Although they have a great number of economic problems, they are still increasing their influence in various ways in different parts of the world. With specific respect to the South Caucasus. If you want me to go into that with regard to China and Russia, I'd be happy to.
Oh, absolutely do. Because I've been speaking about this for a long, long time. We brought up the Belt and Road Initiative some 14 years ago, and I've been doing this for 15 years. It's clawing into first Africa and then now into Europe, into the South China Seas, saying, oh, we'll build you that port. And yet when it comes to pay the dues, all of a sudden, oh no, China now controls it. The rails that went through all of Africa that never existed before. Oh, wait a minute. Now we own that. We transport whatever. You have no say over it. And what Italy has done by allowing it in there. And they were so amazed that COVID hit them so hard. Really. Now their footholds in the Caribbean, in South America and Central America, their partnership with the cartels. We can go on and on and on. And oh, don't let me start in about the truckloads of illegal documentation they have shipped into the United States just in time for IDs for elections. We can go on, can't we, Stan?
Indeed, we can. The Chinese are very clever, and they're very dedicated. They work very hard. And they work very hard toward their goal, again, of world domination by 2049. In order to achieve that goal, they first must severely weaken the United States. They recognize that they cannot do that through traditional military confrontation. We're simply too strong.
They're good at that one now.
But there are a great number of ways in which you can wars by other means. Famously, they had this philosopher whose name was Sun Tzu, who wrote about different ways that you could weaken your enemy before actually striking him. And that is clearly what they are doing here. They're even repeating some things that were done to them. I mean, in the 19th century, for example, Great Britain was trading, and other European countries were as well, trading a great deal with China to China's benefit. They weren't exporting that much to China. And so they began exporting opium from India, which was then a British colony, into China. The Chinese emperor disagreed. And there were wars between European armies, two of them. Wars between European armies and Chinese armies, which the Chinese lost in order to force the Chinese to accept opium traded by the Western countries, including the United States. What was his name? John Jacob Astor, a very famous American multimillionaire in the early 19th century, made a good part of his fortune through that opium trade. And so one could argue that what they're doing is, with fentanyl and its precursors and so forth, is having learned from what was done to them, they're striking back. But whatever, it's working against us along with so many of the things they're doing, and we have to prevent it. Mr. Trump is working very hard to do that, but they have gained a lot of ground before we decided to do something about it. The Obama administration, the Biden administration, frankly, ignored it in many ways. Trump is not doing that, but the task is enormous and the time is limited. With respect again to the South Caucasus, that area had been part of the Tsarist Empire really from the mid-19th century. It was conquered by Tsar Nicholas I. And in 1827, he pushed the Persian Empire all the way back to what is the current border between Azerbaijan and Iran, called the Araks River. But he still had to conquer parts of the mountainous areas of the Caucasus, which was defended by various Avar and other tribes led by religious leaders, particularly a man named Shamil. And in order to do this, he needed local allies. And in those years, the Ottoman Empire was weaker than it had been. And Russia, over the centuries, had taken quite a bit of territory from the Ottomans, too. And so Tsar Nicholas I declared that he was making himself the protector of all Christians inside the Ottoman Empire, which certainly included the Armenians and the Georgians. These people were and had been Christian for thousands of years. That gave him a great deal of additional influence in those areas, and it has benefited him, not him, Nicholas I, but him, the Russian leader, whoever it might be, up until the present. They were able to use particularly Armenians in order to advance their own interests as they conquered the Caucasus. And in fairness to the Armenians, that is in large part because after the First World War, when some Armenians did support the Russians when they invaded Turkey, after the First World War, the Russians went on a massacring binge and slaughtered hundreds of thousands, maybe more, Armenians, and drove a great number of them out of their country. And the Armenians naturally wanted revenge. You can't blame them for that, against the Ottomans. Be that as it may, they worked with the Soviets when they reconquered the area after the First World War and after the Russian Revolution, and they remained supportive of Russian penetration and influence thereafter, and the Russians remained supportive of them in this document that I wrote. You can see it laid out in terms of the treaty relationships and military support structures and everything which the Armenians had. And that led them at one point, as the Soviet Union was falling apart, to attempt to seize a majority Armenian enclave inside Azerbaijani territory called Nagorno-Karabakh, which the Armenians called Artsakh. And because they had a powerful military and Azerbaijan had none, they were able to do that. The Azerbaijanis were able to get the Russians to help them negotiate a ceasefire because they were losing territory on a daily basis. But the ceasefire left Armenia in occupation of Nagorno-Karabakh and all are part of 7 other Azerbaijani provinces. The difficulty for the Azerbaijanis was that the international community did nothing about this. There were 5, I think, UN Security Council resolutions calling on the Armenians to withdraw and so forth, but nothing ever happened. There was a group of European powers, which included the United States, called the Minsk Group, which attempted to negotiate a solution, but without any success. And in the meantime, Azerbaijan had oil and gas. Armenia did not.
Mm-hmm.
And that gave, especially once we negotiated, which we were working on when I was ambassador there, we negotiated the construction of a vast pipeline, 1,200-mile pipeline from the Caspian Sea through Azerbaijan and Georgia and down into Turkey to the Mediterranean Sea at a port called Ceyhan. And that enabled Azerbaijan to export some 2 million barrels a day of crude oil. And there were also then later on gas lines built because they have a great deal of natural gas as well. These things provided a whole lot of money. Azerbaijan had always been well disposed toward Turkey, although they had not been part of the Ottoman Empire. They do have a common border with Turkey via an exclave called Nakhchivan, which is divided from the rest of Azerbaijan by a corridor which Stalin gave to Armenia when the Russians, when the Soviets took over the area in the 1920s, called the Zangezur corridor. And as it happens, the ruling family comes from that area, so they were very interested in reestablishing a permanent connection with it, which is one of the things Mr. Trump was able to do. However, with that additional money from the oil and gas, the Azerbaijanis built up a proper military, one which was considerably superior to that of Armenia, and at the same time they had a close alliance with the Turks, who had begun to develop combat drones called Bayraktars, after the name of the family that developed them in Turkey. And in 2020, in a period of about 44 days, they pioneered the use of combat drones in warfare, and with their larger, more powerful army, they defeated the Armenians, forced them to give up control of most of Nagorno-Karabakh and other territory, and then in 2023, in about 24 hours, they seized the rest of it. But there remain difficulties over the Zangezur corridor, and the issue of warfare was not settled. Technically speaking, the two countries were still at war, and Russia retained the predominant foreign influence in the region because of their long-standing dominant role, even though for Azerbaijan, they had been very well disposed toward the United States and even Israel. And the Azerbaijanis realized that since they are the only country in the world that borders both Russia and Iran, and both of those countries have revanchist aspirations with respect to Azerbaijan, they needed to adopt a policy of what you might call quadrilateral discretion, in which they can either get too close to or too far away from any of their major neighbors, Russia, Iran, Turkey, or the West being obviously Europe and the United States. They've been quite deft at this. The current president, Ilham Aliyev, learned at his father's knee, and his father, whom for that matter, I know Ilham well, but I knew his father, Haidar Aliyev, very well, and his father was an absolute genius. These two men together, and along with the support of Ilham's wife's family, have taken Azerbaijan from an impoverished, weakened Soviet backwater and turned it into a substantial area power with a very strong economy, not just in oil and gas, but in a variety of other areas, having regained almost all of their territory. And the deal that was cut by Mr. Trump recognized that all of this had happened, but recognized also that there was still a state of war, which would continue if something wasn't done, but that a way could be found in order to maximize American influence in the region by offer some degree of protection and trade guarantees and a corridor connecting connecting Azerbaijan with its exclave of Nakhchivan, so that would guarantee Turkey an approach through Nakhchivan along that corridor and into Azerbaijan to the Caspian Sea, which is something the Turks have wanted since before the First World War. It makes everybody happy, except it establishes strong American influence in an area which had been
devoid.
Backyard. It pushes Russia out of the way because Azerbaijan was never happy with Russian support for Armenia, even though they had to accept it because they had no choice. Now they have a choice. And Armenia withdrew from a security arrangement with Russia because they saw that Russia, being overcommitted in Ukraine, was unable to do anything to help them, particularly as Armenia was much stronger than Azerbaijan was much stronger than Armenia, and the United States had involved itself.
Now, here's the question: does this
that situation in which the United States has now established a strong, very positive influence in the region to the detriment of Russia because of Donald Trump? But in addition, if you look at what China has been doing in Central Asia, you can see that they have been using their Belt and Road Initiative to extend Chinese influence both politically and economically. In Tajikistan, for example, there are a great number of beautiful buildings in which had been a small, almost derelict Soviet provincial capital, which were constructed with Chinese money in recent years. There are vast trade networks and regional economic organizations which the Chinese have founded and lead, which include most of the nations of Central Asia. The Chinese only recently completed and opened a railroad from the Iranian city of Sarax in the eastern part of the country, all the way across Central Asia into China, so that they can have trade in a variety of things like oil, for example, which cannot easily be interrupted by the American Navy via the Persian Gulf. And this is something which
you've opened up so many different things here, and my mind is going a mile a minute, because by bringing Armenia and I'm sorry, I don't even know why I cannot pronounce. Thank you. Together, they have opened up the possibility of them now joining NATO, with Turkey on one side of them and Europe on the other, which then gives a helping hand to Ukraine, because we are providing NATO with the weapons to give to Ukraine to fight Russia. In the interim, you've closed the door on China because they're in Tajikistan, and Afghanistan fell. Thank you, Joe Biden. Opened up a whole world of possibilities of rare earth minerals in Afghanistan. And
it also gave the Chinese the big base at Bagram, which we have built.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, we cannot forget about that at all. Bagram base. And so we actually started to shut the door on that. And if we can now negotiate with Afghanistan to come back more on our side, we might be able to close the door, but that's going to be one hell of a job. So I see so many things happening as you're talking about it, and my mind is racing, because I remember in the 90s, when the Soviet Union started to fall, Poland was the first to step away. They opened the doorway to the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia.
Yeah.
And the vital port of Riga, which was the submarine port for Moscow, they lost. So they lost the entrance to the Baltic Sea, but now they're gaining it to the Caspian Sea, but now we may have just shut the door on that too. So I see so many things happening here.
You want to remain aware that they have not entirely lost their port on the Baltic Sea. Are you familiar with the exclave of Kalinin?
No, my late husband was Latvian, and
there is a small area right on the sea called Kalinin, which is a vast Russian weapons storehouse, and it is at the end of a narrow corridor, for which the sovereignty is in some question, between Lithuania and Poland, that runs over to Belarus. And it's an area from which the Russians would expect to operate if there were to be conflict in the area. So they still,
which would give them a stepping stone over to Scandinavia.
But it's something.
It's hard to get around
too. A lot of stuff stored there which they could use in the event of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Back in college, I had to take a 9-hour bus ride through the Polish countryside to get around that little area. So it's little, but it puts a monkey wrench in things.
Mm-hmm. Well, when my late husband being from Latvia, if you ever mentioned FDR in Yalta, you would get an earful. You would get an earful.
I'm sure. Well, an additional problem specifically with Latvia is that there are over 1 million ethnic Russians living there.
Yeah,
they're not happy about that. Trust me, they are not happy about that at all. They actually were digging up the bodies.
It could.
They were digging up the bodies
with a fifth column at some point in the future.
Well, I remember hearing the stories of digging up the bodies from the cemeteries and sending them back to Russia. So they were not happy with that. But now what we see is this actually a ceasefire, or is it a full-blown treaty that is enforceable?
At the moment, because it isn't formally signed by either side, it is a ceasefire and a pending treaty. At such time as it is signed, then it will become legally enforceable. But we expect that, well, there might be the odd little flare-up, because after all, they have been enemies for hundreds of years. We expect that Mr. Trump's continued interest in the area and his willingness to be available for discussions on an instant basis with Ilham Aliyev and Mr. Pashinyan in Armenia, that things will go well, at least initially. The problem that I see that we might have in the reasonably short term, over the next year and a half, is that there remains in Armenia a very strong nationalist faction headed by an archbishop whose name was Bagrat, something like Dashanyan, I've forgotten his last name, who was just recently arrested, actually. But they are very, very strongly opposed to Armenia's, in effect, its surrender to Azerbaijan, without recognizing that there really isn't anything that Armenia could do about it, that they don't have the military capacity to stand up to Azerbaijan at this time. But they definitely did not want that agreement signed, and they launched massive protests and demonstrations, and those things were eventually put down. But it is not clear to me how popular or unpopular Mr. Pashinyan is at present in the wake of this signature of this agreement, and he faces elections next year. So there could be some changes in the Armenian position. One would hope that this agreement is signed and legalized before then, so that Armenia would be committed to it fully, as would Azerbaijan, prior to those elections. I say this because, without going into detail, which I cannot do, there was some years ago a deal between Azerbaijan and Armenia, which would have put an end to the conflict on very different terms. And it was ended as a result of the assassination of 5 of the members of the Armenian parliament who were most supportive of it. Everyone assumes it was done by the KGB because a solution to the problem at that time would have reduced Russian influence in the region, which Mr. Trump has just done now. Mm-hmm. But the point is that action was supported by a number of Armenians at the time.
Well, before you go, I want to ask you just one other question, because we're throwing into this mixture also Turkey. And over the last several years, we've seen Erdogan moving away from being a close ally to the United States. Will this now bring him back into the fold and make him once again a close ally to the United States?
Yes, I think Mr. Erdogan has, how should I put it? He sees that circumstances are changing in his area. After all, the Syrian government just fell, and the new Syrian government is far better disposed toward him than its predecessor was. He is interested in working with the United States, that is, Mr. Erdogan is, since we helped with the deal which was cut with the Kurds to put an end to the long-term struggle for influence and power in eastern Turkey between the Kurds and the ethnic Turks. There are still some folk in some guerrilla groups in parts of Syria which are active against Turkey, and he is dealing with those. He has, as I say, wanted, as not just Erdogan, but his predecessors have wanted for a long time, access to Central Asia east of the Caspian Sea. This was something which, in the First World War, when the group called the Young Turks overthrew the Sultan, and then at the end of the war, they actually invaded east, conquering Armenia, and invaded what is now Azerbaijan. And there was a big battle fought on the hills outside of Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, as they were trying to move forward to create what they called a pan-Turanic empire. That effort came to an end with the end of the First World War. But their ambitions in that direction remain. And without regard to the military and conquest aspect of it, we are still opening up opportunities for the Turkish economy, which is which will be quite profitable for them.
Well, Stan, I want to thank you very much for joining us. We're out of time. Absolutely. Can people find you on social networks?
No, I don't play Facebook or anything like that.
Okay. Well, you're welcome to
have
join
my
us
email.
back. That I do, and you're welcome to join us anytime. Thank you so very much. And if you see CS, tell him I said hi. Take care.
Please give my regards to CS.
I will. Ambassador Stanley Escudero. Let me get that correctly, Escudero. And want to welcome Colonel USMC William Dunn. Hoorah. I was married to a gunny.
How you doing?
My ex is a gunny, or was.
All right. Outstanding.
And you got a book coming out called Gunfighters Rule. I started reading it, and it is fascinating. And once I go to the other end, I'm going to have you back and talk about the book, because there's a lot of interesting things I started to pick up on it. And we'll talk about that later. But what is happening today is really, really amazing. That Trump and Putin are going to Alaska. They'll be landing about 7:00 my time in Alaska. And supposedly they're going to sit down for another 3 or 4 hours and talk turkey. I mean, did you think this day would ever occur?
I did. I did. I absolutely did. You know, President Trump has always shown that he is the negotiator, the deal maker. He likes to get out and engage, whether they're our adversaries or our allies. He likes to engage with them, whether it's business, whether it's foreign policy. He's shown that, you know, he's the guy to get out there, meet people, shake their hands, and get in front of them so they can talk and figure out how to make the world a little bit better place.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I've got with us today Hannah Davis. She is a policy analyst for FAIR, fairus.org, the Federation for American Immigration Reform, because my co-host is out bringing a friend of his over to the VA. So he's doing his thing.
Very nice.
So, all right. Now, this is dealing with the war in Ukraine between Russia and Ukraine, and Zelensky is not going to be in the sit down. What do you see happening? Do you see like Trump is going to put them on the table saying you have to do X, Y, Z? Do you see a negotiation? Do you see something happening with Ukraine down the road? What are you foreseeing?
Well, what I think is going to happen on the corner of my eye, I can see I got some Fox News rolling. The president and Mr. Putin have already shaken hands in our negotiation as we speak. So that's a great step. So they're there. It's happening. It doesn't surprise me that Zelensky's not there. The way I look at this is President Trump is going with the aggressor first, for the only main reason is he's the larger country. He's got probably the country that's got to come to the first agreement, if you will. I don't think we'll get any resolution today, but what we're going to see probably is initial negotiation followed up by negotiation with Zelensky. And somewhere in between the two, there's really two choices, right? They can keep fighting indefinitely, or they can each give something up and maybe get to at least an initial ceasefire, and then ideally followed on by peace. You know, Ukraine has lost some territory. It's very hard for them to swallow, losing territory, giving up territory. But I believe that they need to understand that without tremendous outside help, they would have already lost this war. And without continued outside help, they probably will lose this war. So they can't just go out there and be, you know, pounding their fist on the table saying, we'll never give up an inch of Ukraine, because they may end up losing it all.
You know, I find it amazing because listening to some of the talking heads, they didn't even realize that we purchased Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million back in 1867. What was it called? Seward's Folly?
It was. And
yeah,
it is great, by the way. What a deal.
Yeah.
We got our money out of that one, that's for sure.
Now, you're taken to the fact that Trump was able to get Putin to the table. Do you think this thing he did with Armenia and I cannot pronounce the name of that country if I was my life depended upon. Thank you very much. Do you think that was the final push momentum to say, hey, listen, if Trump could turn around and cut off the oil from this area, make a possible new alliance of two new nations possibility with NATO, maybe I better come to the table where I have something to still come to the table with?
Yeah, I think so. And there's two pieces to this that I see, right? Number one, the biggest piece is we planned for 33 years. I spent in the Marine Corps. We planned to fight Russia and how we would fight Russia, the best way to fight Russia, their tactics. I personally studied their tactics, their aircraft, their capabilities. And to say that a Air Force Bubba or a Marine Bubba that flies we knew every single thing about their aircraft that we could get, whether it was classified or unclassified. We knew it. We studied it. And then when they rolled in hot on Ukraine, we found out that they were pretty much a paper tiger. They really have lost tremendous assets, they've shown a tremendous incapability to do what we call in our military combined arms. They can't do it. They haven't done it, and their losses have been tremendous. The problem that Ukraine has is Russia's enormous, and they don't care about human life. We've seen them spend human life over and over again with a very little care, very little concern about those soldiers that are getting killed every day in Ukraine. Now you look at Ukraine's piece, small country, about 40 million, very solid start to this war, but incapable of massive, what I would consider mass industrial revolution to build and grow their own weapons and their infrastructure. So they need outside help. So you've got two entities that are sort of in a stalemate, right? And I know some other experts may disagree, but I think they're in a stalemate right now. And the only thing that's going to really happen is attrition warfare, unless something gets very substantially changed on the Russian front. Russia's fighting a limited war. Ukraine is fighting total war. It's very hard for the limited war, if you will, aggressor to win, because every man, woman, and child in Ukraine is going to fight to the death. Basically, that's what they're saying, to prevent Russia from taking over. So very hard to get your country behind that if you're just fighting a limited war.
Now, Hannah, you got any questions? Go ahead.
I'm curious as to how it'll play out, because I can tie everything back to immigration with the refugee status of the Ukrainians. We've received a lot of them here in the States, and I'm curious how either way. I do think that there's been so much turmoil that we've received upwards of thousands, and then with this potential for things to die down, whether or not we'll still be receiving them. I don't know, William, if you have any insight on that.
I think we will receive them, because there's going to be, whenever a conflict ends, and I'm sure there's times that it didn't happen this way, but normally when a conflict ends, there's some sort of humanitarian crisis that follows, because their industry, what are they, they're ideally not going to give up any industry, maybe some land, but they've taken tremendous losses on the Ukrainian side as well. And what happens when if the conflict ends today, and then no one continues to funnel weapons and funds into Ukraine is not going to be able to build back quickly. That is actually going to give Russia an opportunity to restart their aggression in the future. So the one thing that I don't think we can have happen, I don't see Ukraine being allowed into NATO, and I don't think we should, because Russia's not going to let a NATO country be right there on their border, especially one that they still may have either some overt or covert ambitions to take over in the future. So they're not going to allow that to happen. And I suspect that's probably number one on Putin's checklist right now. I have no idea, right? I'm speculating, but I bet his first statement was to President Trump, no way they could be in NATO. And if you agree to that, let's start talking. I believe that's taking place.
Well, what you're also going to see is Ukraine has a massive infrastructure to rebuild. Entire neighborhoods, cities are gone, completely gone. You don't have that in Russia. So they can just sit back a little bit, wait a little bit, and see what gets rebuilt and say, oh, this is the time of right to come back in. So what's going to prevent them from doing that?
Well, the only thing that could prevent them from doing that is probably someone like Donald Trump. We have to align. The world has to align. If you have a pariah, the world has to align against that pariah. What I was always hoping for when this Russian aggression began was that the entire world would sanction Russia, not allow anything to come in or come out, destroy their economy, and then that would have given Putin an off-ramp. You could have said to Putin, hey, we're shutting everything down. The world's against you. Then he could have gone back to his people and said, hey, I'm doing this, even though, we're going to call this a win so we can get these sanction lifters to help our economy. That would have given Putin an off-ramp. And I think that's the biggest thing we have to have. We have to have an off-ramp for Putin to where he can go back and make it appear, at least tacitly appear, that he's the victor here. So if he walks away with land, he's won. But we haven't really sanctioned him enough. So if we try to cripple their economy a little bit, then that would have been the stick, if you will, in the carrot and stick analogy. That would have been the stick to get him to do something. But right now, if Putin were to walk away and just keep the land that he's already seized, that would be a huge victory for him and a big loss for Ukraine. However, I think of something else. If I'm Ukraine, maybe I take a knee right now and then I rebuild. But part of my negotiation is I continue growing my military, and then maybe they go back and push Russia out sometime later. So the one thing that I'm certain about, whatever happens today or the next few months to get to what I would consider a peace settlement in the war, Russia-Ukraine, the one thing that I'm positive of is it's going to be temporary.
Yeah, it sounds like it. We've so many different moving parts here. And one of them, you have North Korea sending troops to aid the Russians in the invasion of Ukraine. You have Xi from China sitting down with Putin. It used to be China and Russia were at each other's throat. No longer. They're now buddies here. You throw into the mix that Kim Jong-un is looking for his successor, and it might be in his daughter, that he's parading in front of missiles in North Korea, saying she is my go-to person without actually naming her as a successor. There's so many things happening here, so many balls juggling. It's hard to know which one's going to drop out of the juggler's hand.
Well, yes. And, not that I feel bad for North Koreans per se, because they are an adversary of ours, but I actually, as a military guy, I feel bad that they sent those men over there just to be destroyed. They got wiped out. I know some of them literally surrendered upon arriving. And, this is the key takeaway, the difference between the last two administrations in our own country. I believe President Trump cares about the lives of our men and women. And I very much believe Pete Hegseth does. I do not believe the last administration cared. We saw that at Abbey Gate in Afghanistan, and we saw that at our open border. They put American citizens at risk every single day. So any military person, I think the number one thing they hope for is that, you don't join the military in a volunteer organization without knowingly understanding you may have to give your life for your country. The thing that I hope, and I know that I did, is I always believed that my president wasn't going to sell my life cheaply if I had to give my life. And, the last 4 years before President Trump got back in office, I did not feel that way. We had men and women under attack in the Middle East, like 300 times, I think is the count, before we did anything. And so if you were a U.S. troop in the Middle East being attacked over and over again, and knowing that your president is not going to do anything to help you, that's terrifying as a military person. So when they sent the North Koreans over, they sold those lives cheaply. And once again, you have two countries who don't really care about their troops, it seems, and they just send them into the meat grinder to die.
Well, we think as Americans, we pride life, we pride our liberty, we pride our freedoms, we pride having personal possessions. These countries you're talking about, there is not. They're told that they are wards of the state, that they owe their lives to the state. It's a whole completely different mindset. So when we sit here and we hear our other side of the political aisle saying open borders, these illegal aliens are actually residents, we're like, wait a minute. It's a completely different mindset you're talking about. You're talking as if you're Chinese saying, hey, open the borders and let us invade. Which is what we're seeing right here today. This is an invasion of our borders, to call it in its actual honest form.
Well, it is an invasion, and if you think about the numbers, when we went into Iraq in OIF 1, I believe we attacked with about 140,000 men and women. We've had tens of millions come across our border, right? So put that in perspective. Now, obviously, they're not bringing tanks and aircraft, but how many of these individuals crossed our border with a weapon or a drone or some explosives in their backpack that plan to do or have planned to do some sort of damage to our country?
Yeah,
It
there's
is
been
insane.
reports. I'm
What's that?
sorry. I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say there's been reports on the sleeper cell situation just for the sheer amount of gotaways that we can't calculate how many they've come in. We've got pushing 20 million illegal aliens. The gotaways are the ones you got to be scared about because, like, you're right. Under the previous administration, they were just letting them in. And so the ones that were actually avoiding any form of vetting are the ones we really have to look out for. And so there's sleeper cells here. I would say that Hezbollah is active within the U.S. We've got the fentanyl crisis. We've got children being smuggled and drugs, and it's insane. And so you compared the previous administration to this one when it came to respecting the lives of military individuals, but it also comes down to respecting the lives of American constituents as a whole, Americans as a whole. I do think that the current administration cares about the men and women in this nation more than the previous one. So I definitely agree with you there.
The only thing the last administration didn't do was surrender our country to another country.
Yeah,
that was
exactly right.
If that administration won again, maybe we would have just surrendered our country, 2 years from now, because they were literally doing everything they can do to empower other nations to take actions in our own country. The thing that I wish somebody would had asked someone on the left, how many illegal aliens should we allow in our country? 10 million, 100 million? Should we let 100 million Chinese come into our country? Should we do that? They'll just say, well, I'm not going to talk hypotheticals. And that's how they get out of that conversation. But the reality is, what was the number? How many Americans must die? How many Americans must die before we take a stand? And the reality is, I love when, Martha was her name, I guess, when the vice president was talking to Martha that I guess she was CNN. And she said, I'm going to stop you there. Only a few buildings have been taken over by illegal alien groups.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
And what if your children or your family, your brothers, your sisters, your mom, your dad were in those apartment complexes?
Mm-hmm.
I tell you what I would have been doing. I would have brought my weapons and I would have helped take that, apartment complex back. And that's what it required. Those police had to go in and take it back. They had to take back territory of the United States from illegal gangs. It's crazy.
And it's still not all completely taken back. Aurora, Colorado, and Denver, it's right there by Denver. They're all sanctuary. It's a sanctuary state. And some of those apartments are still overrun with trendy Aragua, illegal gang members here.
It's terrifying. And
no, this has been a long-term problem, and it's not just the last couple of administrations. I mean, a friend of mine, Bob Machadi, was killed by an illegal alien that an ICE agent I knew working upstairs the precinct with us had escorted across the border 3 separate times. That was 1989. I remember standing at attention at his funeral and my nose bleeding. I mean, Eddie Burns killed because of a drug dealer making a call from a prison cell. Gary Coe, I can name the officers that have died in the line of duty in New York City because of illegal aliens. And this was in the 80s. And we're seeing it today in, I think it was either 98 or 99. I picked up either it was Time or Newsweek. The front cover said, UTMs other than Mexicans. I had no idea what the heck that was. I started reading about it back then. They were talking about prayer shawls and Korans being left in the desert out there as they came into the United States. The signs for the immigrants illegally crossing were written not only in Arabic and English and Spanish, in Chinese. So this has been going on for decades. And I think only now, under this administration, has anyone really seen the full magnitude of it. So my question to you as a military man, what can our president do to even secure the borders even more? Set out manned military posts at the border?
Well, I mean, the answer is what we're doing right now is working. It's working. You have to have a strong border, period. There's no questions asked. Imagine if this 3 of us here, if we just went into Mexico, we'd be arrested. If we went, it's harder for me to get into Mexico than it is for an illegal alien to get into our country. At least it was. But if you go to any of these other big countries, we'll be thrown in jail if not shot. So, and I'm not recommending we shoot people coming across the border at all, but we need to have a stiff penalty. I like the fact that if you don't leave and we arrest you, you're never coming back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, give someone an opportunity to leave. This money that we're paying, you know, think about the whole crazy concept here. We let illegal aliens come in, period. Illegal aliens, that's all there is to it. We let them come in. Now we have to pay them to leave. It's insane.
Yeah.
But it's better than the alternative, right? We have to get them out and come. And I welcome everyone to come in legally. Everybody. There are legal ways to do it. We can't go to another country without doing it legally. Let's make the, you know, it's a simple rule, right? The rules are already there. The laws are already on the books. Let's just enforce them.
Yeah. And stop. The states need to stop incentivizing illegal immigration. You know, sanctuary states give benefits, food stamps, SNAP benefits. Annie and I were talking earlier about in-state tuition rates, you know, medical coverage. If all of that stops, then why would an illegal alien want to go to that state? So states hold more power than they realize. It's one thing to have the federal laws in place, and they need to be, they're already codified. And so the fact that the previous administration was just derelict of duty to outright ignore them blatantly, create these unlawful pathways, abuse asylum, abuse parole, open up the border, but it's not going to stop any future president from not doing that. It's been done. The blueprint's there. It can happen again. So what the states need to do is really crack down on these sanctuary policies, you know, withhold funding, if statewide funding, if there's a jurisdiction within their state that is a sanctuary. If they stop incentivizing illegal immigration, you know, that can really help the nation as a whole. And there's always going to be states like California and New York that will remain sanctuary states, but then let the migrants go there. We see what's happening right now in California because of it, but we also see what's happening on the flip side of that coin in states like Florida or Kentucky that are outright denying, you know, sanctuary jurisdictions within their state. So there's, you know, I think the Biden administration has set a dangerous precedent that what has happened can happen again. But at the same time, the Trump administration is saying, hey, what I'm doing, the next president can do as well. So, but at the end of the day, we don't like the pendulum to swing so much on immigration policy. We can't even focus on legal immigration. People always complain about how backlogged it is and how long it takes. And it does. And people can't even focus on fixing that policy wise when we're so busy dealing with illegal immigration. So that's my spiel.
Yeah, and I agree. I like it. And, you know, it's interesting. I just met a guy, right? He was 70 years old. His name's Jim. He was moving he's lived in California his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
He's moving to Wyoming. He's already found a house. He's bailing out. And the reason why he says, I love California. He goes, but it's no longer my California.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm bailing out. I will never go back. They have destroyed the state. And you know, it's kind of a dilemma, right? I agree. If you're a sanctuary state, let all the illegal immigrants go there. And then pretty soon you're going to have a state with just illegal immigrants in it because all of the U.S. personnel will leave. Mm-hmm. And, you know, obviously not, you know, all, I don't mean all, but the vast majority of them will. The key to this is funding. Shut off every dollar of federal funding, period. Put in laws on the books, especially right now we have the House and the Senate and the presidency. Put laws on the books that if you are a sanctuary state, you get nothing, not one penny, nothing. If you're a college, the simple fact that one of the biggest things that came out of President Trump is I never realized how much money we were giving of my tax dollars and your tax dollars, how much we were giving to some of these private universities to fund a litany of things. And unbeknownst to us, we were funding, you know, potentially we were funding hate. We were funding a lot of hate, especially against Israel. Had no idea we were doing that. And that's my money and your money and my wife's money. It's all of our money, our children's money. We have to stop that because, you know, I never knew we were doing that. And, you know, and I consider myself a very intelligent guy, but I had no clue that we were putting all of those billions of dollars and hundreds of millions of dollars into these universities for research or whatever they were calling it. And look what it's done for us. Not much.
No, also we have to cut off the foreign dollars going into our universities and other institutions because a lot of these boards of these colleges are influenced either by extremist Muslims or the Chinese or any other enemy of our country. And they then sway what's going on. They do the same thing in corporate boardrooms. They find ways to sway them. I don't even understand why they opened up the New York Stock Exchange to China. We kept them out so we can control our economy, but now we're allowing their influence in our business. I mean, it is absolutely insane. But we're down to our last 5 minutes here, Colonel, and I want to thank you for joining us. Tell us about your book.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so the book was a great journey, and I spent 33 years in the Marine Corps. I started out, I joined at 17, and I decided after I wrote the book while I was still in, but I didn't get it finished after I retired. But I decided to write a book about my time, my experiences. It was a very stressful endeavor. Growing up as a little kid, I was 11 when my father died. And then we had some personal tragedies. My house burnt down, and not all the way, but we had to move. And then before that, my mother had a stroke. So as a young kid, I was getting all these issues, and I had to make a decision one day. Was I going to let all these issues beat me? And so I said no, and I joined the Marine Corps with my best friend. So I talk about that, my first days in the Marine Corps, then growing up doing different things. And it carries me through a couple combat deployments, at once as a forward air controller, which was a very intense time during OAF-1. And then I talk about all the way getting to be the commander of the Gunfighters, hence the name of the book. And our motto at the Gunfighters, which was HMLA 369 out of Camp Pendleton, California, the motto was Gunfighters Rule. And so I talk about that, and my daughters read the book, and it's funny because my one daughter says, you say kill 152 times in your book. And I was like, well, it's not combat. It's war.
Well, I got one question for you. Are you east of the Mississippi or west of the Mississippi when you went to boot camp?
I went to the boot camp, Parris Island.
Ah, that's right down the street from me, because I'm right smack in the heart of the Tri-Command. You might have even been stationed here, were you?
No, I was stationed East Coast a lot, but in New River and Camp Lejeune in New River, and then I did my squadron. My command tour was out at Camp Pendleton.
Well, I got to say, I tended bar in the Marine Corps in Garden City, New York, when Raymond Kelly was the CO there.
Okay. All right.
And then I became a cop under him as a police commissioner. So
very nice.
I served under him twice. But I want to thank you. Where can people find you in the book?
Well, they can find me at colonelwilliamdunn.com. That's my website. And then they can get the book anywhere you can buy books. But typically the simplest one is Amazon.com. Just Google Gunfighters Rule, and it'll pop right up, and you can get yourself a copy. It's on ebook, in paperback, and eventually, once I get some time, it'll be on audio. Hopefully soon.
Nice.
Well, I got you on my Kindle. I got to tell you that. You definitely are. Matter of fact, it's open to Kindle's not even seen. It's open.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Well, God bless, and thank you for all the hard work, and thank you for your service to this country, sir.
Well, yes, ma'am. And Hannah and Ann, thanks so much for having me. Great to see you. And I hope you have a super duper weekend before it gets cold. It's eventually going to be chilly. It's coming.
Oh, no. It's about 100 degrees here. I'm not worried.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
All right. Take care.
Yes.
All right. Check him out. WilliamDunn.com. Hannah, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you. You always get me laughing.
He was fun. I wanted to ask him if he drank any of the water at Camp Lejeune, because they're always having those lawsuits about the water, so I didn't have time. But no, he was very interesting. And the guest before him, it was like a history lesson. I'm not too well versed in that stuff. So that was interesting for sure. I think we had a good show.
Well, I want to give a shout out to AJ from Publis PR, who sends us a lot of these guests. Now, Stanley has gone through our friend CS, but AJ brings us a lot of these other powerhouses like Colonel Dunn and others that we have on the show. And so hopefully AJ will be on the show next week, and he'll talk about his book and other things he's doing too. So with that, AJ, if you're listening, that's a hint. So with that, Hannah, I want to say good night and God bless. You take care now. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
I'm praying for this land I love, America, America, the home of the free. But there are people making plans to change America. They've no respect for her or what matters most to me. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Mourn for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. Do you hear our battle cry across America? We've got to rescue her. You know it's up to me and you to see the truth behind their lies. Don't change America. God bless America and the red, white, and blue. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Long for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. For the friends we have loved and lost, and we still believe in God we trust, in the freedom our forefathers granted us. We know it's not too late to save America. Save America. Let's save America. Together we can save America.